So these are the aircraft cards, total of 15. There are 5 German, 5 French, and 5 British. Basically, there's a pattern. So this is an early war. The DH2 has 1 victory point and 3 airframe. 1915 have a similar aircraft for the French, 1 victory point, 3 airframe, and 1 for the Germans, Eindecker, 1 victory point, 3 airframe. Then we go to, and each deck has one of the 1-3s. Then a little later in the war, stop with Pup, and it's a 2-4, 2 victory points, 4 airframe. Spad for the French, 2-4. Albatross 3 for the Germans, 2-4. Then each set has a 3-5. Again, these are the British, the French, and then the Germans. So 3 5s. And then the top of the line is a 4 victory point, 6 airframe. Each Air Force has 1 of those. It's the starting point. You notice there's no other abilities on any of the cards. Pretty bare right now. That may change. But what we have is at least a starting point. And these are attachments that will go onto pilot cards. I'll get into the pilot cards next and show the wingman as well. But 15 cards, 15 aircraft. Hopefully we get some nice illustrations, make them look really cool. Everybody likes airplane pictures. I mean, who doesn't, right? Anyway, this is a start. Like I said, I'll show the pilots and the wingman next. Okay, here are the pilot cards. Basically 2 decks. They are Allied and German. We'll start at the top here. And basically, we've got a pilot recruit, 2 airframe, hand size of 3, 1 victory point. An airman, which is a little step up, 2 victory points, a 3 airframe, and cards hand size of 3, and the star represents you draw 4 cards, keep 3, and then a little step up from there, veteran pilot, 3 victory points, 4 airframe, 4 hand size. So it goes from from a 2-3 to a 3-3 star to a 4-4. These are unnamed pilots. Germans have the same. So when you roll on an encounter table and you get a recruit or an airman or veteran, you'll use these cards. Then each side has 17 named pilots. Let's start with the British. They have 2 legendary pilots. And the way I did that was 70 or more kills. So there's only 3 legendary pilots in the game. You can guess who the other one is. 8 victory points, 7 airframe, and a 5 hand size. And then everybody else is an ace. Okay? So there's a total of 17. In this case, there's 15 aces and 2 legendaries for the Allied. And they have 5 victory points, an airframe of 5, and a hand size of 4, draw 5, keep 4. And you'll notice that the legendary bumps 2 on the airframe and 3 on the victory points. And again, these numbers when I play test may vary. And then for the Germans, obviously, Richthofen, he is legendary. And there's his brother. And again, they have 16 aces and 1 legendary. So whenever you, on an event table, roll for a pilot or an event, and it tells you a ace, you'll shuffle this deck and randomly pull out your opponent, who you're going to be fighting against. Now, a couple of things on the pilot cards, and we'll start up here with these. You'll notice it says for, let's start with the recruit, draws 1 card for a defensive maneuver, draws 1 card for damage mitigation, and gains -1 on advantage checks. You'll notice it's slightly different for an airman. He doesn't lose the advantage, but basically draws 1 card for defense and 1 for mitigation, and same thing for the veteran. When you get to an ace, a little bit different, they draw 2 cards for defensive maneuver, and if they pull an advanced maneuver, they stop and use that maneuver. So that's why it says stops at first advanced maneuver. So when they're doing their defense, they're going to flip 2 cards, and the second one will be the one they use unless they get an advanced one. And then draws up to 2 cards for damage mitigation. Same thing, if you flip over 1 card and it does damage mitigation, you're done. If not, you get a second shot at it. And then they gain +1 on advantage checks. And then a legendary pilot draws 2 cards and +1, oh, excuse me, 3 cards for defense maneuvers, and 3 cards for damage mitigation, and gains +2 on advantage checks. So the legendary pilots, the 3 of them in the game, are going to be tough. That's the way it should be. And I did put the number of kills on the card just for flavor. So 80 kills. You'll see these two, 72, 75. And then I did add, I went through and basically took everybody that had 40+ kills, put them in the game, and then filled up some slots with people like Eddie Rickenbacker, who only had 26 kills, but we wanted to get him in the game. Same with somebody like a Max Immelman. I mean, he's pretty famous, only 15 kills, so he gets in the game. Okay. So a couple of what I thought were some of the pilots with a little more notoriety, I wanted to have them in the game. So that's basically the pilots. Again, 3 skill levels for no names, and then the ace and the legendary, a total of 17 name pilots on each side based on your event and the difficulty you'll pull and play one of these. And then with obviously if you shoot down a named pilot in a campaign mode, you'll roll to see their fate, and depending on their fate, you may remove them from the deck for future pulls, or they might just be shot down and make it back to base and fight you another day. Again, that's part of the narrative piece. Anyway, a lot of pilots added. Next, I'll get into the combination of the pilots, the wingmen, and the aircraft, to show you what that kind of looks like, and then some thoughts on expanding the deck size and how damage is not how damage is done, but the value of the burst cards. I'll get into that in just a second. All right, so I'm going to show you how the combination of a pilot, an aircraft, and a wingman kind of go together, and show you some numbers. And then a decision I've made about another lever in the game, and that being the actual deck, as in the deck size, and also the burst values in the game. I'm going to increase those. So basically, let's start with early war, weakest aircraft in the game is a 1 victory point, 3 airframe. And we're going to go with a rookie pilot. 2 airframe, 1 victory point. So basically we've got 5 airframe, hand size of 3, 2 victory points. Okay, put that in front of you, and then you'll be playing your hand, keep track of your damage. And I'll make these cards so maybe you can, again, with the markers, put damage, count them out. Again, it's all playtest stuff, so I just use dice for right now. Flip side is we're going to look at the highest values, right? We're going to take a legendary pilot, in this case Richthofen, with his 7 airframe, flying Fokker D7, late war, with a 6 airframe. And he has a veteran wingman with 4 airframe. 3 victory points, 8 victory points, 4 victory points. 15 victory points as opposed to 2 victory points. But when we put these together, we've got 17 airframe. When this game was originally designed, both aircraft, it was a 2-player game, had 8. So I've up and doubled, over doubled, and again, this is just the legendary pilots, the airframe. But if I was playing with an ace, I would still have, what's the airframe on that? A 5 or 6, right? Let me just find one real quick. Yeah, it's a 5. So let's take Lothar. Okay. So that's still 15 airframe. That's almost double. And this is, what you're going to get with your named pilots, your aces. So between 15 to 17 airframe, which again is a lot more than what the 8 airframe was in the game. So that's why I've decided to take and basically start with doubling all the burst values in the game. So obviously 1s become 2s, 2s, 4s, 3 6s, and the 1 4 becomes an 8. So that's a lever dealing with the damage. It also allows me to now, I don't have to do like 1.5 burst, right? That's just a 3, right? You double the 1 to a 2, you add 1, it becomes 3. So by doubling all the numbers, now I have gaps in between, where right now it's 1 2 3, and now it becomes 2 4 6, which allows obviously for 3 5 7. I can put on cards, so it gives me some granularity to play with. Second change to the deck will be going from 32 cards. I think about 40 should be the max. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and bump it to 40 is, one, so I can play with the numbers and because of the variance here and do some balance, but also because I want to focus on the narrative side, which means I can now put some cards in that, like for example, we have Shot Through the Heart, and Richthofen was shot through the heart. But what about Shot Down in Flames, where your aircraft, your fuel tank explodes and you go down that way? Again, that's adding some narrative to the game and allows me to add, 8 more cards to the deck to really give it some flavor. And even if the effects are similar to other cards, the fact that it's a little more narrative is going to make the game, I think, a lot more fun and attract more people to play the game and enjoy the game much more. So next episode, so next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my database. I've already done the pilots. I'm going to change all of the base cards in the game, in the deck, go through my old stack of cards, pull out ones that I think would be cool to add to the game, put those in, spend a little time crunching some numbers, modifying burst values, and that's both for anti-aircraft fire and balloon bursting. Right now it's pretty simple the way I do it, but I'm going to work on that subsystem. But next week, after I get everything reprinted and do some playtesting, I'll put up a video that kind of shows the state of the game with those modifications and my thoughts on it at that point. Anyway, I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out what we're doing. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for your time. I'll talk to you soon.